The grass is still wet from the night before. It's a Tuesday morning in November, the 6th to be precise. And the field at College Avenue in New Brunswick, New Jersey, hasn't been marked with lines. There are no goalposts. There is no scoreboard. There are no referees in striped shirts, no television trucks idling outside, no vendors selling anything. There are just two groups of young men, 25 to a side, standing on what is essentially an open meadow, looking at each other across 30 yards of open November ground, each trying to appear more certain than he actually is. One group wears scarlet, the other wears blue. The year is 1869, and none of them have any idea what they are about to invent. 4 years have passed since the end of the Civil War. The United States is still a country rebuilding its own understanding of itself, its borders, its identity, its appetite for organized competition. The railroads are pushing west. Industrial cities are filling with men looking for work and meaning. Washington, D.C. is embroiled in the turbulence of Reconstruction. Ulysses S. Grant has been president for less than a year, having won an election on the promise of stability in a nation still counting its dead. And on the campuses of the few universities that exist in the Northeast, young men from wealthy families are doing what young men have always done. They are competing, testing themselves against each other in ways that feel urgent and primal and entirely disconnected from the formal education happening inside the limestone buildings behind them. So the game they are about to play does not yet have a settled name. It is sometimes called football. Sometimes it borrows from the British game of association football, what the world will later call soccer. Sometimes it resembles rugby. There is no unified rulebook in America. Each college plays its own improvised version, with rules that shift depending on who shows up, how many, and what everyone agrees to before the first kick. Princeton plays one version, Harvard plays another. And now Rutgers and Princeton have agreed to meet on this November morning with a set of rules negotiated just days before, written down, formally agreed upon by representatives of both schools, and preserved in letters that still exist. 25 men per team. The ball, round, inflated, made of rubber, must be advanced by kicking or batting with the fist. Carrying the ball is not allowed. The first team to score 6 goals wins. This is not yet American football, but it is the day American football begins. William Leggett, the Rutgers captain, is 20 years old. He is studying for the ministry, a detail that feels almost impossible to reconcile with the shouting, physical man organizing 24 teammates on a muddy field. He will go on to become a Dutch Reformed minister in New York, and later a celebrated naturalist and ornithologist, a man whose patient attention to birds in the wild will earn him a genuine scientific reputation. None of that is visible yet. What historical records show is that Leggett was described by contemporaries as a natural leader and someone who could impose order on chaos with nothing more than his presence and his voice. He will need both today. The Princeton captain, William Gummere, will spend most of his adult life as Chief Justice of the New Jersey Supreme Court, the highest legal position in the state. He is, at this moment, just a young man from a distinguished New Jersey family who has trained for this game the way people train for things they don't yet have a proper language for. Instinctively, competitively, with an almost furious certainty that winning matters even when the stakes cannot be named. These are two men, in other words, who will both become pillars of their respective professions. Right now, they are just trying to beat each other at something that has no established name. So most of the men on both sides have never seen a game between two different colleges. They have only played among themselves, making up rules as they go, improvising, arguing, restarting when someone disagrees too violently to continue. The concept of a formalized intercollegiate contest, of representing an institution against another institution, with witnesses and a reporter, and a result that will be published, is itself a novelty so new it has no established customs attached to it. Nobody knows how to behave at the end. Nobody has agreed on what the winning team is supposed to do. Nobody knows what losing will actually feel like when it's in front of an audience. There is no film. There are no photographs of the game in progress. What exists are written accounts from participants, on newspaper descriptions published in the days following, and memories that filtered into historical records decades later when the participants understood, finally, that they had been present at something worth remembering. So what follows is a reconstruction, built from those sources, of what any observer standing at the edge of the field would have witnessed. The ball is kicked. 50 men surge forward simultaneously, and the sound, boots on packed earth, wool against wool, 50 male voices releasing everything they've been holding back, is something that the few dozen spectators along the fence line have never heard before, because this configuration of people, this purpose, this contest, has never existed in America before this moment. This is not a game of elegant formations. There are no formations. It is closer in appearance to a medieval mob advancing on a contested position than to anything a modern fan would recognize from a Sunday afternoon broadcast. Men run. Men shout. Men kick and deflect with their hands and forearms. The rules say the ball cannot be carried, but the rules are new, and the instinct to grab is evolutionary, and the chaos of the early minutes is a constant negotiation between what was written down last week and what the body demands right now. Several men fall. At least one stays down for a moment longer than the others, before getting back up and saying nothing about why. Rutgers scores first. The home crowd, students who have gathered along the sides of the field, some sitting on a fence rail, and some standing in clusters with their coats pulled tight against the November air, erupts in something between a cheer and a collective exhale. The sound is unorganized, genuine, a noise that has no precedent to copy from and no ritual to follow. They are inventing, in real time, how to be a sports crowd. The air smells of cut grass and damp wool and cold mud. The temperature in New Brunswick on November 6, 1869, was cool and overcast, according to regional weather records. The men's breath is faintly visible on the coldest gusts. Nobody pauses for long enough to notice. Rutgers wins the game 6-4. The match takes most of the afternoon, a fluid, continuous contest, without quarters or halves, without television timeouts or coaches signaling from the sideline. More like a sustained physical argument than anything with the rhythmic structure of modern football. Princeton's men are physically larger, on average, and they adapt to the mayhem faster than expected. For a stretch in the middle of the game, they dominate the field so completely that the outcome seems genuinely uncertain, and the Rutgers spectators along the fence go quiet in the particular way that crowds go quiet when they are trying not to show that they're worried. A return match is scheduled for 1 week later at Princeton. Princeton wins that game 8-0, under conditions that have never been fully documented, which gives both schools something to claim, and neither school the clean narrative of a dynasty. The Newark Daily Advertiser publishes a short account of the first game. It is small, buried, but unremarkable, a few paragraphs placed where a few paragraphs fit. The reporter does not appear to understand that he is writing about the origin of a sport that will one day generate revenues exceeding $15 billion annually, that will command audiences of over 100 million people for a single championship game, that will become the organizing ritual of the American autumn for more than a century. He is just writing about some college boys playing with a round rubber ball in a field. He files his copy, goes home, and thinks nothing more of it. The men playing this game are not wearing helmets. Helmets will not appear in football for decades, and when they finally do appear, they will be leather, minimal, fragile objects, worn reluctantly because being seen in one carries the implication that you are afraid of contact, and that implication is socially devastating in this world. The men on this field are wearing their everyday student clothing, wool trousers, cotton shirts, possibly a light jacket or vest. Shoes vary. Some men are wearing proper boots, some lighter shoes, possibly a few playing in something closer to bare feet on the softer parts of the field. The scarlet worn by Rutgers is improvised. Written accounts from participants suggest that some players wore scarlet-colored turbans or caps to distinguish themselves from the Princeton men in blue, a detail so specifically strange and human and visually extraordinary that it deserves a full moment of stillness. Young men in turbans, kicking a rubber ball, on a November Tuesday in New Jersey, unknowingly creating the most commercially successful sport in the history of the United States. No one on this field weighs over 200 pounds. The largest men are farm boys and laborers' sons, whose physical development came from actual physical labor, not from weight rooms that don't exist yet. There is no sports science, no film study, no nutritional protocol. What these men have is raw competitive instinct, organized by a few pages of written rules, their own bodies, and the particular fury of young men who do not yet know how to lose gracefully in public. They will be sore tomorrow. Several will sustain injuries they say nothing about because saying something would imply the game was too much for them, and not one of them will admit that. Walter Camp is 15 years old today. He lives in New Haven, Connecticut, and he will not play his first game at Yale until 1876. But he will not propose the system of downs and yards, the conceptual architecture that transforms football from mob chaos into something measurable and strategic until 1880. The snap from center, the quarterback, the line of scrimmage, the scoring system that awards points rather than goals. None of these exist yet. They are the invention of one man's systematic obsession with rationalizing beautiful violence. And that man is currently a teenager doing homework in Connecticut, with no way of knowing that a game being played right now in New Jersey will define the direction of his life. The forward pass, the single rule change that will make football a genuinely different sport from everything that came before it, will not be legalized until 1906. 37 years from this afternoon. The Super Bowl is 98 years away. The salary cap, the draft, the franchise tag, the replay review. All of it is so far in the future from this muddy field that the distance is almost incomprehensible. The men on this field know only the wet grass under their feet, the round rubber ball, the shouts of their teammates, and the completely specific, completely human satisfaction, or the dissatisfaction, of the final score. Everything else is the future, and the future is entirely invisible to everyone living inside the present moment. That is the permanent condition of history being made. Everything that happens in American football, every Super Bowl, every dynasty, every Hall of Fame induction ceremony in Canton, Ohio, on every record broken and every record that stands, traces a direct line back to this Tuesday afternoon in New Brunswick. The professionalization of the game happens because colleges prove that the appetite is there, that Americans will come out in cold weather to watch other people compete in an organized, rule-bound contest and feel something genuine and lasting about the result. The formation of the American Professional Football Association in 1920, the organization that becomes the NFL, happens because decades of college football have created an entire generation of men who want to keep playing after graduation, and an entire generation of fans who want to keep watching. The television deal that transforms the league from a regional sport into a national institution happens because the game, by then, has 100 years of audience already trained to believe that football is the natural language of American autumn competition. None of that is visible on November 6, 1869. What is visible is 50 young men in wool and improvised scarlet and navy blue, without helmets or formations or a forward pass, playing something that barely resembles what their great-grandchildren will call football on 100 million screens simultaneously. playing it with complete seriousness, playing it as if the outcome matters entirely. Because it does. Not for the reasons they think, but it absolutely does. The next time someone asks you when football started, you tell them, a wet Tuesday in November. An unmarked field. 50 men who thought they were just playing a game and had no idea they were building the foundation of a sport that would define an entire nation's calendar for the next century and a half. The question we have for you is this: which moment of that journey do you want us to reconstruct next? The first professional game, the first forward pass, the day the NFL almost collapsed. Tell us in the comments. We read every single one.
Oh, before you go, if this video made sense to you, subscribe to the channel. This helps YouTube deliver this content to even more people. Also, leave your like. It's essential for our growth here on the platform. And if you want to support us even more, Super Thanks is right below and helps directly with the production of new content. Comment here where you're from. And thank you for watching us until the end. See you in the next video.